Well, good morning, everybody. Sports Court Update. I'm Drew Kraus. Our big guest this morning. He came back on our show in May, correctly predicted that Tyrod was going to be a starting quarterback, and now we're getting ready to go. Welcome back to our show, WGR 550. Sal Capaccio. Sal, thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much, and if I could get as lucky with lottery numbers or something like that, that'd be great, but I get one right once in a while.
So, now, last week the team went to London. You went to London too. Do you have any places you'd recommend? Like, how was your trip?
Oh, it was amazing. It was a great trip. Didn't end well for the Bills, obviously, so they kind of put a sour taste in everybody's mouth on the way home, but yeah, of course, Big Ben, the London Eye, which is the big Ferris wheel, got to see all of that, and actually, it's a lot bigger of a city than I ever imagined. It's very historical, and if you get a chance to go over there, absolutely everybody should do that. There's a lot of culture and a lot of history to be learned.
Week 1 against the Colts, the Bills had a solid outing, but since week 2, Sal, the team has been inconsistent, a little banged up too. What do the Bills have to do to turn things around as we head to the second half?
Well, number one, get healthy. That's the first thing they need to do, and I think this is the bye week coming at the right time. They have to get healthy, absolutely. And then once that happens, I think the defense needs to kind of dial it back a little bit. I think Rex is trying a lot of things that he's done throughout his career that have been very successful, but in today's NFL with spread offenses and quarterbacks getting rid of the ball so quickly, I think we've got to be a little bit less creativity, and I think that's one of the things they're going to have to adjust as far as the game plan.
Now, a pair of rookies, Ronald Darby and Kraus, a lot of people said that the Bills overdrafted them, but so far they've produced. What have you thought of them so far?
Well, I'll tell you, Doug Whaley's really hit on a lot of those second and third and fourth and fifth round picks. You go back to Kiko Alonso and Robert Woods and guys like that, Sean Henderson in late rounds who became a starter. So he's done a really nice job of finding these gems, and these kids came in and really burst on the scene. Carlos Williams, if he can come back from his concussion, which hopefully, he'll be okay. We're hearing that, he is progressing through the protocol. He's going to be a very big compliment. I think that's the big thing. You have to have him and LaShawn healthy for him to be the guy you want him to be, because he's a good compliment to LaShawn McCoy. But, boy, Ron Darby, he's made it really tough for Leotis McKelvin to even get on the field now when he comes back. And I don't think you can actually put Leotis in for Darby. The kid is sensational.
You mentioned LaShawn McCoy, a rough first half with the Bills. Not as disappointing as DeMarco Murray with the Eagles. He finally returned. Bills home game at Cincinnati a couple weeks ago. But sometimes in close yard situations, Sal, he hasn't gotten the call. 4th and 1 especially, down to the wire last week. Do you think that his production will increase once he's fully healthy, or what's the Bills' forecast for the running game?
Yeah, I didn't agree with a couple of those play calls. I thought that if you want to be a power run team, then you give the ball to your best player in those situations. And I thought that Greg Roman, didn't do a good job of managing those with play calls. But I'm a Greg Roman fan. I think he's done a good job overall. And yeah, I do think they need to give LaShawn a little more workload. But again, he's been getting banged up. He's recovering from the hamstring. Hopefully this week he'll get 100%. He'll get back. And if he does have Carlos Williams backing him up, that gives you a little more room, I think, and margin for error to give him more of a workload.
Do you think that the cutting of Freddie Jackson in the offseason has affected the running game at all?
I don't, because, Fred is 34 years old, and at some point he's probably going to be a little banged up. He is already in Seattle, actually, and it really came down to Fred Jackson or Carlos Williams. And to me, I think it showed the Bills made the right choice. You have the younger guy who's a lot more cheap, who's going to be with you for a long time.
Charles Clay, he had a quad performance last week, but he's been the biggest playmaker that I've been excited about. What has he brought to this offense? Because it seems that the Bills finally have a catch first, block second tight. Probably the first time since Pete Metzelaar was in the 90s.
Yeah, he's been dynamic, absolutely. And you know what he's done, actually? He's opened up the middle of the field a little bit, and he's opened up the outside, I should say, by working the middle of the field. And if they can get Percy or Sammy and both of them back, then Charles becomes even better. In the first few games when those guys were on the field, there was a lot more room for him to work. But he's kind of a Swiss Army knife. You can do a lot of different things with him. You can line him up on the edge. You can line him up inside. He can even be an H-back blocker for you once in a while, but he's been dynamic for sure.
You mentioned about Percy Harvin. Do you have any stats on him coming back at all?
Well, I've been told that Percy and the Bills have had positive communication, so that's good news. But we don't know exactly where he stands right now as far as his hip injury. But, I think he's just very frustrated. Here's his latest injury. He can't get on the field. So when he's on the field, by the way, when him and Sammy are together, I should say, 3 times this year, 3 games, 2.5 games, he's had 19 catches, I think it is, 198 yards. So Sammy really opens up Percy, and I think that's the key, getting both of them together.
That's a perfect segue for our next question about Sammy Watkins. You've probably been all over this week. Again, if you're just walking in, Sal Capaccio from WGR 550 is joining us today. But Sammy earlier this week on Instagram called out fans to question his durability, rightly so, because he's been on a while, called them losers, and told them to continue working y'all little jobs for the rest of y'all lives. Now, 2 wrongs don't make it right. By the way, that's a 5-minute bell. 2 wrongs don't make it right here, but could this and the lack of discipline on penalty with the penalties, especially on defense. Do you think that this could tear apart the locker room?
No, not at all. I don't think what he did, what he wrote, has anything to do with the play on the field or in the locker room. I think guys understand that other players get frustrated. No one's going to point fingers at Sammy in the locker room. In fact, some guys will probably quietly say, yeah, I wish I could say something like that. But he shouldn't. He absolutely shouldn't. He has to be better than that. He's 22 years old. He's frustrated. And I think, look, I mean, I'm 42 now. When I was 22, I did dumb things. And I still do dumb things. But I think we have to allow a little bit of room here for Sam to grow, to mature. And he made a dumb decision. He should not have ever called out the fans. But he's frustrated right now. He needs to get on the field. I think that's the biggest issue. But, it was a bad look, no doubt about it. And I wish Sammy would at least come out and say, I'm sorry for doing it. He tried a bit of an apology. But I think that we all should just understand that he's young. He's going to make mistakes. And we should allow him to atone for them and make up and mature after that.
Regardless of all these problems, the Bills are only 3-4 in the season. Still plenty of time to turn around. I believe there was like 18 teams are below 500, so it's crazy. What does Rex need to fix to reset the button? Do you think that we put our expectations too high this season because the drought has gone on for 15 years?
I don't think the expectations were too high. I still think this was a talented team that we should have expected them to be at the very least 4-3, maybe 5-2 at this point. Now at 3-4, that's disappointing. You can't lose to Jacksonville. But when you have E.J. Manuel playing, obviously he's shown that he's really not a starting quarterback in this league. He gave them single-handedly, 3 touchdowns, so that's always going to hurt you. But I think they have to fix the defense and the communication and dial it back a little bit, like I said. And again, to get healthy. But you touched on a little while ago, Joe. I mean, the penalties have killed this team. They have to be more disciplined on the field. They have to learn to control their emotions. There's a lot of football to be played. I think over half of the AFC is below 500, which is crazy.
You mentioned about E.J., but especially Tyrod Taylor. Came out, kicked off the season with a bang. First of all, what are your thoughts on Tyrod? Because it seems that when he's out there, the offense really clicks.
Yeah, I mean Tyrod is still second in the entire NFL in completion percentage at 70%. Now it's a smaller sample size; he's missed some games, but he's done a tremendous job when he's been in there. The problem is that he has missed those games, and you do wonder about his durability if he's going to keep running. You're going to have to probably have a plan in mind if he does miss some time, but. He needs to be out on the field. I think he really opens up a little bit more, gives you a little bit more in the playbook you can do. Greg Roman can run the ball. I asked Greg Roman last week, if Tyrod's injuries, being banged up has limited what he's done offensively, and he said absolutely. I think he'd like to get Tyrod a little bit more involved in the run game, or at least have that threat.
I have the Bills going 4-5 the last 9 games of the season. Do you think that this team can rebound, make a run down the stretch?
I do, and here's the thing. As much as the Bills may seem a mess, the entire AFC is a mess right now, right? I mean, everybody's within one game of each other. And here's the other thing. The last part of the schedule looked really daunting when it came out. It doesn't look that way anymore. You got Kansas City without Jamal Charles. You got Houston, who's a mess right now. What is Dallas without Romo and Dez maybe? Who's Philly? Who's Washington? These are all teams they play. So the key is the next 3 games, all division games. Miami, the Jets, and New England. Jets and New England both away in prime time. If they can go 2-1 in those games and just come out of it 5-5, I think they have a shot at 9-7. And that might be enough to get you in the playoffs this year.
Sounds good. A couple of last questions here. I know the Sabres, you're a huge fan of them, Buffalo boy. Jack Eichel's been fun to watch. I love how Dan Biles went taking over the team. How do you think the rest of the season is going to be for them?
It's going to be fun to watch. They're not going to be as good as a lot of people thought they would be because I think our expectations getting Eichel and O'Reilly and Kane and those guys right away, we think they're going to jump up into top 4 or 5 in the conference. That's not going to happen, but I think one thing we've seen is at least they can score a little bit and give you a chance to come back, and it's fun, and they do have a lot of talent on the team. Goaltending might hurt them a little bit this year. I know Leonard's out, with the injury, but it's going to be fun to watch. I love watching Jack Eichel. I mean, the kid just turned 19 years old, and he's sensational.
Unbelievable. That's our 1 Minute Bell. Sal, we thank you for joining us. Hopefully you have some great Halloween plans. I don't know if anybody's planning to dress up as you, but...
Hey, I'm easy to do. You gotta shave the head, put a little marker on your face. That's all right. Send me the pictures. Tweet me at Sal Sports.
Sal Capaccio, everybody. Have a great week, and we'll be back right after this.
All right, buddy.
Take care, Sal.